Is the Big Ten truly this bad? Welcome to the Voice of College Football. We break down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis based on your contribution. We appreciate you being here. Please like the video, share the videos out on social media. Guess what? Believe it or not everyone knows we are here at the Voice of College Football for you every day. The Big Ten has been plain awful on the field. So by other criteria, we have evaluated the Big Ten in recent years to be the second best conference in college football. Others have lined up with that opinion as well. And it makes sense when you look at the NFL draft, the recruiting rankings, when you look at the on-field production, the results on the field, and the power of Ohio State, Michigan on down the line versus the rest of the conferences. And certainly when you look at the future with USC, UCLA, and all that money, all that prestige, the TV media markets, the TV ratings, the eyeballs and the butts in the seats point to the Big Ten challenging the SEC, but we're in the here and now of college football play and performance on the field in 2022, and it's not pretty for the Big Ten. One big bright note for this past weekend, of course, was Penn State for the first time ever, and for the first time ever, a Big Ten team venturing to Auburn and Jordan-Hare Stadium to face that crowd, to face that orange out environment. And Penn State came up big. How good is Auburn? That's the big question. They were only 8 points better than San Jose State. They're coming off a down year at 6-7. In SEC terms, Auburn's probably not that good. At this point, they look to be one of the bottom 3 to 4 teams in the SEC, but that's SEC. If we put Auburn in just about any other conference, they would fare much better. It's still a talented ball club, but it's not up to Auburn standards. Penn State wins at 41-12. That's an impressive performance. Good performance for the Big Ten. That's a strong win, but that's not a spectacular win by any stretch of the imagination. Both teams have really good talent. Ohio State, Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin basically all took care of business against really, really bad teams this past weekend. All right, Maryland had a decent win that may have gone under the radar to a certain extent. It was a non-Power 5 win, but they pulled one out at home against SMU 34-27. How good is SMU? That's the typical question that we ask about just about all these teams at this point in the season. Well, we only know in recent years that SMU has been a top 10 to 12 group of 5 team, and they've been a pretty tough out for the Power 5. Look at the records, the standings. They lose Sonny Dykes, but how good is SMU? That remains to be seen, but still it appears to be a quality, but again, not a stellar win for the Big Ten. Maryland wins it at home as a 2 or 3 point favorite. Indiana avoided a bad loss against Western Kentucky at home, and they didn't necessarily pull the game out. Western Kentucky handed them a missed field goal at the end of regulation. Indiana wins and avoids embarrassment at home against Western Kentucky. That's not a good win. That is avoiding embarrassment. Nebraska gets pummeled by Oklahoma 49-14. Is that a bad loss? Well, yes and no. It would be a quote-unquote good loss if you believe in good losses. If it were the case where Nebraska last year went to Oklahoma, took on a top 10 team, and took them to the wire 23-16. Not this time. Oklahoma rolled Nebraska. Bad look for the Nebraska program in the Big Ten. They lose 49-14. It wasn't even that close. Then we've got the matter of Purdue going to Syracuse. Again, the Big Ten's in a position where they gain few points from winning these games on the evaluation meter, but they can lose a whole lot, and such was the case here. Syracuse starting to gain respect. They pummeled Louisville by 24 points. They came in at 2-0. But still, Purdue should win at Syracuse, even though the line was pretty much pick 'em within a point or two. Purdue blew the game. Syracuse looked like the better team throughout the game if you're evaluating performance. But Aiden O'Connell, Payne Durham, Charlie Jones, those guys kept poking up for big pass plays. They came back from 2 scores down in the last couple minutes. Looked like they had won the game, 29-25. And then Purdue, unsportsmanlike conducts, PI, defensive holding led to a last-second touchdown pass with 7 seconds left when coverage broke down, and Purdue loses a excruciating game at Syracuse. Not good for the Big Ten. Not a bad loss, but an opportunity for a decent win. Purdue loses 32-29. All right, Northwestern, my goodness, coming off a game in which they trailed Duke 21-0, came back to make it a game, could have tied the game in the last 12 seconds of the game. They fumble in the end zone and lose the game against Duke, and they were an 11-point favorite. The next week, Northwestern, a 13.5-point favorite against FCS Southern Illinois. And so Northwestern and the Big Ten become the first conference and team to lose to an FCS this season, and Northwestern loses it 31-24. So bad loss for the Big Ten. This is what it looks like overall. 29-8 looks like that's a good record. Well, it's really not that good. 5-6 against the Power Five. The 5 wins: Notre Dame, Auburn, Boston College, Virginia, and Colorado. And we only serve up the Power 5 statistic to say, most of the Power 5 is the Power 5, and it's better than the Group of 5. The majority of it, the great majority. But there are plenty of examples of bad Power 5s that aren't nearly as good Group of 5s. And a couple wins by the Big Ten underline that, in particular Colorado. And the way Boston College is playing right now, unless they get better, they were expected to be a 7 or 8 win team and a good win for the Big Ten, but maybe not so much, as Boston College has struggled against the likes of Maine and lost to Virginia Tech. The losses for the Big Ten, there are 6 of them. Oklahoma, no shame in that, but by 5 touchdowns. Washington, Michigan State. Okay, we need to underline this game. Michigan State goes out to Washington. I was a bit surprised that they were a 4-point underdog, but I tagged this game as being a under-the-radar possible upset during the offseason when it appeared as though, of course, Michigan State's going to be a favorite against the Huskies because Washington coming off 4-8, but Kalen DeBoer can coach, and now he's got a quarterback in Michael Penix. And did you watch that game? I did. Not close. This was not Michigan State going out losing by a field goal to a good Washington team. This is Michigan State going out and getting obliterated. If not for Peyton Thorne working as much magic as he possibly could to kind of keep them in the game, this was an annihilation. The trench play, you would think Michigan State, big bad bullies from the Big Ten. No, Washington dominated. Michigan State looked bad. Bad loss for the Big Ten in terms of just losing the game, but even worse, underlined that they lost by 11. It was really a 25-point game. Against the Group of 5, the Big Ten at 17-1. SMU, couple wins against Temple, nothing really there to brag about. And of course, the one loss by Nebraska against Georgia Southern. So again, Big Ten wins. Notre Dame, not as good as we thought. Auburn, probably not that good. BC, Virginia, Colorado, nothing to see here, folks. Look at the other conferences and the wins. Look at the SEC. The SEC has wins over Utah, Oregon, Texas, Pitt, Miami, Cincinnati, Arizona. The ACC has wins over LSU, Texas Tech, Purdue, Northwestern, West Virginia, East Carolina, UCF, App State. The Big 12, they've notched wins against Nebraska, Colorado, Arizona State, Houston a couple times, Iowa, Mizzou, Texas San Antonio is even a better win than just about every win that the Big Ten has notched non-conference. And then even the Pac-12, we have been bearing the Pac-12 for years, and for good reason. The Pac-12 has deserved it. It's been awful. Not this year, outplaying the Big Ten. Wisconsin, Michigan State, BYU, Fresno State twice, San Diego State twice, Boise, all victims from Pac-12 teams. What does it all mean? What do I think of the Big Ten? Forget all that for a quick second. I still believe this is the second best conference in college football. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, still quality teams. Minnesota, Purdue, really good teams. Michigan State, we shall see. But the results tell us otherwise. And I will be coming up with my conference rankings here later on Monday. It unfortunately doesn't mean that much, except for the Big Ten in those 11 appearances against the Power 5 and overall in these 37 games, not playing well. Mostly not playing well. Penn State beat Auburn, that's a good one. Ohio State, Notre Dame, we'll see if Notre Dame improves throughout the season, but not as good a win as it appeared off the top. Michigan is dominating the dregs of college football in the FBS. There's just not enough games to evaluate these conferences. we are basically going to evaluate the Big Ten and everybody else with Ohio State playing Notre Dame and Michigan playing no one, the two best teams in the conference. But the Big Ten Western Division, my goodness, has let down this conference. Wisconsin losing to Washington State, Iowa to Iowa State, and we've noted the other losses, and again, Michigan State this past weekend. So when you add it all up, I believe the Big Ten is still the second best conference. How can I rank it the second best conference, though? The results on the field, the performance, are not saying that. Does the Big Ten have time to make up for this? No, they don't. Because regardless of what happens in conference, those are in-conference games. So regardless of how much Ohio State, Michigan, and maybe somebody else, Penn State, ascends to the top, they're going to do it against other conference teams. There's only one other significant non-conference game this regular season for the Big Ten. Indiana goes to Cincinnati and will probably lose, but could win that game. Indiana, Cincinnati, that's it. The rest of the non-conference games are cream puffs and will get nothing in regards to Big Ten credit. We'll have to look to the postseason, the bowl games, and of course the college football playoff for the Big Ten to make amends in a season in which this conference was supposed to challenge the SEC. It has failed miserably. Your thoughts down below, right here at the Voice of College Football.